Georgia 27, Tennessee 13. Wow, that game did not feel that close, did it? So yesterday we were in Athens, Georgia. I, like many people, expected a much closer game than that. I took Tennessee plus the points, took Georgia to win. Kind of a cop-out, if you want to call it that. I think a lot of people went that direction. I don't think the logic was that unsound. I was driving back last night and I was thinking to myself, after I just witnessed what I witnessed, couldn't hear a thing, still have ringing in my ears. That's not a joke. That's real life. I'll talk about Sanford Stadium in a second. Y'all deserve a lot of credit for that. But I don't think my logic was unsound. I've felt this way with about like 2 or 3 teams in my life. It's logical to expect an offense like Tennessee to be able to score on any defense. That's logical. It's logical to watch a team like Georgia lose just the sheer amount of talent they did to the NFL draft and expect there could be a weakness. There could be a piece or two that could be exposed here and there. Certainly they're not going to be an impenetrable unit defensively. That's logical. And if you think in those terms, it's going to steer you in the right direction about 98% of the time. Maybe even 99% of the time. But there's always that 1%, isn't there? And that team there, the ones in red and black with the silver breeches, of course, they're just the 1%. They're just the different product in the game right now than any other product out there. I've got a lot of friends over on Dogs 24/7. A lot of acquaintances, some friends. And if there's one thing I know they love more than anything else, it is when I compare their program to Alabama. The Alabama you want to be compared to right now is the one in the rearview mirror, not the windshield necessarily. Talk about that later. But my point is, we used to say that about Bama. We used to say they defy conventional wisdom, keep your logic, keep your common sense, but just throw it out the window when you're talking about them. Well, that's Georgia now. You keep your logic. Tennessee is going to probably hang a ridiculous number on anyone else they play. You keep your conventional wisdom. When teams lose a ton of guys to the NFL draft, there's going to be an expected drop-off. Keep all that. It will steer you in the right direction. Just remember, when you talk about that block G there, that's a different animal now. It will be for a long time. The Georgia defense yesterday, I thought, made the statement of the year in college football so far. What they did, 2 of 14 on third down, is remarkable. And I want to go at it in a couple of different directions here. Pretty early on, I thought that the first quarter was going to be disproportionately telling for both teams. And yet, there we sit, opening drive for Georgia. They turn the ball over. Bennett almost throws a pick. It doesn't get picked. Then they put the ball on the ground. Tennessee grabs it. They end up scoring. And there are some people who I assume maybe had to take a call at that point. You know, maybe had to go answer the door. Maybe FedEx came to the door, knock, knock, knock. And you go back and it's 14-3 Georgia with like half the quarter to go. And you think to yourself, they've got a 2-score lead and they turned it over on their opening possession? Yes, because they did the Tennessee stuff more than Tennessee could do the Tennessee stuff early on. I know tight end's been the focal point of Georgia's offense this year so far. They had some receivers step up. It turns out they really could victimize Tennessee's secondary because their offensive line went to work. Georgia's offensive line needed to play the game of the year. It's what we talked about Thursday. It's what we talked about Tuesday. It's what they largely did yesterday. I don't know what PFF graded them out on. I know I stood there and looked across the field the entire afternoon, and I saw which side was getting surged. I saw which quarterback was kept clean for the most part, and it was the one wearing the red top. So Stetson Bennett had himself a really good afternoon. Georgia's offense, they did what they wanted to do. I know there are some really, really casual tweets circulating out there talking about how they had their lowest relative offensive output in a number of categories. Guys, please don't fall for that stuff. Please, look, if this is you, just take the hook out of your mouth. Don't be caught by that. Georgia wanted to play a different style yesterday that led to more offensive output. They could have. They didn't want to because, as Kirby Smart said many times in the postgame and as has been said many times by any coach worth his salt, complimentary football has won in the past, it does win today, and it will always win. I know there's some clinics out there in the summer that may suggest otherwise. Complimentary football very much works. Tennessee was put in third down 14 times. 9 times they were in 3rd and 5 or longer, and they were 0 for 9 in those circumstances. That's your padlock stat. Georgia put them in uncomfortable positions, and Georgia put them in positions where their entire playbook was, in fact, not available to them. I don't know what else you can say about them. They swarm. They play as one. This stuff sounds so clean and easy to say. Look at how few the number of teams are out there who do this. One of them right now, one of them is really playing like Georgia. They're playing on a different level. They swarm. As I said, they collectively play as a unit. There's always 5 or 10 of them around the football, it seems like. They tackle. They're physical. They do stuff that a lot of people would try and convince you can't do anymore because of the way practice has changed. Go to a Georgia practice on a Tuesday or Wednesday. You probably can't, but talk to people who are at Georgia practices on Tuesday or Wednesday and ask them how the physicality is around there. Ask them how the competitiveness is around there. That C word, another really important attribute to your culture, competing. And sometimes when you get to the point they are depth-wise, sometimes your stiffest competition does come on Tuesday or Wednesday from the guy running 2 right now, but really close to running with the ones or splitting reps with the ones. They compete. Man, it's everything. Every single thing's competition around there. How's this possible? How many times did I hear that asked yesterday in the postgame? I was in Smart's postgame presser. I think like 5 people asked him, how could you do this? Almost like he's trying to defy a script out there or something. How could you lose this many players to the NFL draft and still put forth this sort of performance? That's not what my preview magazine said you were going to do. Uh-oh. Well, how do they do it? They got the best culture in college football right now. Culture, there's that word again. Everyone's got one, right? Well, that is true. Everyone does have a culture. Some of them just suck. Georgia's is the best in college football right now. They're able to clear the mechanism. You know what clearing the mechanism is? That's when you are literally able to vacuum close all outside noise out of your program. They clear the mechanism like no other program in America. There is nothing outside that matters. There is no criticism that matters. No one else's expectations matter. There were different takes coming from all over last week, including here. None of that stuff mattered. I was at the facility Friday. They were nice enough to tour me around, and I talked to some of their staff. Coincidentally, I left that building Friday having predicted a close game, before I talked to anyone down in Athens, and I left Friday night saying, uh-oh. If I could redo Friday night, if I could do the segment again Friday night, you would have found me taking Georgia to win and cover. They were supremely confident. People have been confident and lost before, but I think they felt very, very, very good about the matchup and what they were going to be able to do. And the thing about it is, there was very little variance in their expectation. Kirby said post-game, we knew we had done everything we could. So there's a path where Tennessee could have won the game, but if they won the game, it would be because they truly are the number 1 team in the country. Georgia wasn't going to give them an inch. They weren't going to give them a thing. And instead, Georgia just proved they got the best culture in college football. They didn't just prove it yesterday. They reiterated it yesterday. But that culture thing, it's funny. Everyone's got one, but not everyone has an elite culture. But when you can clear that mechanism and when you really can slam the door on everything outside of your program, it's magical. It's one thing if you can do it as an individual. I don't doubt Kirby Smart gets in his truck every morning and drives to work and takes care of locking everything else out for his own self. And maybe he can even do it for his staff to a certain extent. When you can do it for 19-year-old college football players and a locker room full of them, then you can achieve some really special things, and you can do it over and over and over again because that standard doesn't change. And if you can ever secure the mechanism and you can ever lock all that noise out and truly create an environment where all that matters is what's on the inside. So the only things that matter are your standard and then your process. You define what you're about, and then you push that to the side. You don't really focus on the goals. You just focus on doing every single hour of every single day what it takes to achieve them. It's the same way you build a successful show. It's the same way you build a successful business. It's the same way you build and maintain a successful football program. And when you've got it, it doesn't matter how many times that revolving door over there swings. Fact of the matter is, the better you get, the more likely your people are to get poached. The better you get, the more likely you are to send a bunch of guys off to the NFL draft. But when you've got the same immersion process happening and you're getting the right types of people and immersing them in the same kind of culture, you get shockingly similar results. That's why that phrase, reload over rebuild, that's a really popular buzz phrase, but you don't get to say it very often. You can say it about them. What about Tennessee here? What do we make of them? It was very somber around the program last night. That's because they want to win the SEC championship, and they probably can't now, but they can still make the playoff. In fact, I had Jesse look up the current odds to win the national championship, not just to make the SEC championship or make the playoff or anything like that. You know where Tennessee is right now? After their loss yesterday. They're fourth. They're fourth. Tennessee's got the fourth best odds to win the national championship, and they're significantly ahead of TCU. So this team is still, I would argue, expected to make the college football playoff. You know what part of that is because of? Part of that is because odds makers don't think TCU is going undefeated. They're a 7-point dog this Saturday. TCU plays at Texas. You know, the one that all of you think we have overrated in the JP poll. Shocker, Texas is favored again over a team that you have ranked higher than them. So TCU's there, Oregon, your Pac-12 champ, maybe. Tennessee is still very much in the thick of this, is the point. Everyone wants to dunk, as Meemaw used to say. I tried this out on Jesse earlier today. It got a pop in the room. Everyone wants to dunk, but no one wants the growing pains. And yesterday's just necessary. You just need it. I know it would have been nice to win the game. Certainly, if you could hit the rewind button, you would change the outcome for the better for Tennessee. Yes, you want to win the game. I just want you to put yourself in 2025 for a second. Who knows? Maybe you're putting yourself 3 months from now and you're hoisting a national championship trophy. I'm just saying, sometimes you really got to get slapped in the back of the head. You really got to get just pushed up against the wall, figuratively, of course, and you need to understand, and you need your people to understand, here's how far we've come. That's what the real deal over there looks like. That's how far we have left to go. Now, we're not going to do things exactly how they do. There's certainly more than one way to skin the cat, but they're on the right track. And it's really important to note how seriously they got taken yesterday. Everybody believes a nameless, faceless opponent. There was a reason that the energy and the hype and the atmosphere around that game yesterday was a little bit different. It's because Tennessee has made you take them that seriously. And they're still very much in this thing. They can still be a threat. They can still make the playoff. But Heupel, in his postgame, I thought was very blunt. He was very short but direct and honest. And he said, we didn't do a good job of handling the emotional aspect of the game, which is a great intangible, but it's so evident in every game. You see it on TV. You don't even have to be there in person. You see it, and you understand which teams are rattled early or which teams are not settling into the moment, which teams can't clear their own mechanism, and the externals are working against them. Well, that happened to Tennessee. They didn't handle that stuff. I almost said something bad. I don't want to, though. They didn't handle it very well yesterday, and he was brutally honest. He said the same thing. They had 14 attempts, as I said, on third down. They were 2 of 14. A ton of penalties. I think that there was a quote from Eric Ainge that circulated last week about how Sanford Stadium, not that tough. Not that tough. And I retweeted it and said, I think this is both right historically and wrong presently. I'll get back to that in just a second, actually. But they still have the 4th best odds to win the titles. Tennessee's still there. I just think in the long run, this is going to go a long way in jolting the program back into reality with a team that still stands to benefit and achieve a lot this year. It's not all bad. I'm just telling you, it's not all bad. And if you don't think that yesterday's outcome could flip with a few plays going a different way, Georgia's coaching staff knows that's true. You know, that's why you and I saw a dominant performance, but you listen to the head coach of the University of Georgia, and he's very cautious to talk about it in those terms. He knows they dominated him yesterday, but he knows that's yesterday. And he knows if Bennett gets sacked down there instead of rushing for a touchdown, could change the whole game. If Jalen Hyatt has a couple of balls instead of him going 5 yards beyond his reach, if he's under one of them, it could go a different way. It didn't. And that's a good thing for Georgia, and it's probably a beneficial thing for Tennessee. They still got a lot to play for this year. It will benefit them in the future. Let me talk about Athens for a second. So I don't get to go down there ever because Georgia's home schedule is atrocious. Next year, it's atrocious. I would bet you anything we don't get to go to a game there next year. And the fans know it. And it will pay, or I don't think it'll pay off. It'll change in the future when they expand the conference schedule. Plus, Georgia's got a lot of good home and home scheduled in the future. But right now, you're stuck with what you got. Home field in college football in these big games is undervalued. Our buddies, college football nerds, I saw them talking about this yesterday. I've said this several times on this show. I mean, you'd have odds makers tell you that home field, Sanford Stadium, even in a big game, oh, we'll give it 3.5 or 4 points. Home field in these big games, I'm at every single one of them. I am telling you it's worth over a touchdown. Playing there yesterday was absurd to try and handle if you're Tennessee. Just like in Neyland a couple of weeks ago, it was absurd to try and handle that if you're Alabama. They work on this stuff all week. And yet, even having been prepared for it, that's what that environment does. I don't know what the decibel level is to hurt your hearing. I don't know at what point it just all sounds like noise. But whatever that point is, that place got well above that point yesterday because I could not distinguish between that and Death Valley at night and Neyland a couple of weeks ago. Couldn't distinguish between it. Certainly had a big outcome or impact on the outcome of the game. And here's the thing about the Georgia game day experience. Those of you around that place know, those of you who have covered games there or maybe have even played there would know it's always been a really good environment, not lethal. Georgia, Sanford Stadium on a Saturday historically was not a top 10, top 5 toughest type places to play. They didn't ever make those lists. They do now. And that coincides with a change in attitude overall in that program. A lot changed there when Kirby Smart came in. And it's a testament to how much impact one powerful person can have on a program. And one person who has singular focus and can get an organization and in turn an entire group, an entire massive fan base to buy into a collective vision and an administration to get on the same page. It is wild how different that place is. I remember going up there, it would have been about 10 or so years ago. It was during Mark Richt. And it was a really good program. I mean, Georgia was never bad under Mark Richt, but they weren't top 3. But the facilities were just good. The attitude around the program was just pretty good. They didn't have a killer instinct. They did not have that go-for-the-throat mentality. They just didn't have it as a program. The boosters didn't. The administration didn't. I was up there Friday night, and that place is like NASA. It is wild what all they have and the access that those players have. It's a life-changing experience. I always love comparing and contrasting different facilities and different resources that programs have, but it's Kirby Smart. It is Kirby Smart. That is the difference. And that's why the best get paid what they do. Because look at the mushroom clouds difference in impact over that program, and it's one dude. Same thing happened at Bama in 06, 07, 08 when Saban came in. Same things happened at Georgia in 16, 17 when Kirby Smart came in. And its ripple effect will be felt for years. I mean, I don't know when he'll be gone. Maybe it's 30 years from now. But they got stuff there that you'll enjoy long after he's gone because he was there. They celebrated the life of Vince Dooley over the weekend. He passed away last week. They celebrated him this weekend. There's a lot about Georgia football that you know because of what he did once upon a time. And so you've just got a more modern day version of that. But man, they are operating at a very high level. It was really good to get back to my home state. And I know I've said this 2 or 3 times this year, but I'm going to say it again. We have never had a reception and never been recognized as frequently and as plentifully, there we go, as we were this weekend. If you've never been to a game at Sanford Stadium, I would highly recommend putting that one on your bucket list. Just wait till they have a marquee opponent in there. Guys, thanks for watching Late Kick. Make sure to leave a comment. I love interacting with you. But most of all, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. That's how we keep all of this free.